Hello and welcome to my Stamperia Fortune mini album tutorial series designed for scrap and create. All of the products that I will be using to create this mini album and box will be linked in the description box below, so check those out, purchase your supplies, and follow along. In today's tutorial, we are going to start working on the front side of page 2. So I've got my cardstock pieces here that we're going to cut and score. First, I have 4 pieces. These all measure 4 3/4 by 4 1/4. On the first 2 pieces, I'm going to be scoring these on the 4 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch on the left-hand side. Then on the other 2, I'm going to score on the 4 3/4 inch at 1/2 inch on the right-hand side. Then once those pieces are all scored, I'm going to go ahead and miter the ends on all 4 of my pieces. Next, I have a piece that measures 7 1/8 by 2 inches. On the 7 1/8 inch side, I'm going to score this at 1/2 inch and at 7 5/8 of an inch. Now I'm going to take my scissors and miter the ends on these 1/2 inch tabs on both sides. Then I have one final piece. It measures 3 1/2 inches by 8 inches. On the 8 inch side, I'm going to score this at 4 inches. And then on this one, I'm not going to cut anything. I am going to fold this one on that score line and use my bone folder to burnish this fold. And then I'm going to score on the score lines I'm going to fold on the score lines of all of these pieces and burnish with my bone folder. Then I'll come back and show you where to place these on the page. First thing I need to do before placing my pieces is measure down 1/2 inch from the top left corner. And then I'm going to measure up 1/2 inch from the bottom right corner. I'm going to take my first flap that has a tab on the left-hand side and apply my adhesive to the back side. This one I'm going to place right here where that 1/2 inch mark is, and then line up my score line with the edge of the page and burnish this down. Now I'm going to take my flap with the 1/2 inch tab on the right side and apply my adhesive. And this one I'm going to apply to the right side of the page so that that bottom is at that 1/2 inch mark. Line up my score line with the edge of the page and burnish this down. Next, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to place my ruler now on this flap that I just placed on the page. I'm going to mark this here at 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here at the bottom. I'm going to mark this at 1/2 inch. I'm going to take my second flap that has the hinge on the right hand side. I'm going to open this up. And now I'm going to place this so that the top edge is lined up with that flap or that line 1/2 inch below this one. And then I'm going to line this up on the inside of my flap, making sure that this one will still close. So it's just slightly in from the edge of the page to accommodate this score line here. I'll do the same thing with my final flap. I'm going to apply my adhesive, and then I'm going to close this one and this one. I'm going to turn this around. And now I'm going to be using this mark, lining that bottom edge up now with that mark, and then coming over just to that score line so that my flaps will both close. And then I'll burnish this one down. I'm going to bring in my 7 1/8 inch piece, and I'm going to check to see if mine will fit in here. I can already see that it will not, so I'm going to need to trim it. But to check your piece, place it in here, close 2 flaps, close your 2 flaps. So this will not close. You see that it is coming up. So what I need to do here, I'm going to just grab my scoreboard really quickly. I'm going to bring this in here. And I am going to score just slightly past the score line that is already on my piece. And give it a little bit more room. And then I'm going to check this again. I may need to give it a little bit more. Yep. So now I'm going to just go past it a little bit more. Score this. And it'll definitely fit this time. The alternative to this would have been to just cut this at 7 inches instead of 7 1/8. And it would have been just a little bit smaller, but it definitely would have fit. So I can see now that this one will fit. All of my flaps will close. So now I can go ahead and mark my center point. At 1 inch from center on both sides. Then I'll go ahead and apply my adhesive to these tabs, making sure that you have this one folded really well so that it doesn't end up being adhered on the wrong one. Just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and burnish this on both sides so that my belly band is now on my page. And then for now, I'm just going to place my card in here under my belly band. Now I'm just going to close my flaps, starting with the upper right, the lower left, the lower right, and the upper left, staggering them. And I will actually add another piece eventually once I get my decorative papers on for a magnetic closure. From my adhesive paper cutouts, I have the 3, and then I have my bird. I'm going to use these as the closure. It's going to go over top of here, and I'm going to layer these on top of one another like this. So first, I'm just going to actually take my scissors, and I'm going to cut these little pieces off the bottom of my 3. I think I'm going to cut this one off as well. And I'm going to place it right here on the corner of my upper flap, and it's going to place my 3 in the center of my lower flap. Then I'm going to remove the backing off of my bird, and I'm going to apply it to just the top portion of my 3. So I'm going to hold the rest of this so it doesn't stick to this part, just like it's perched on my 3. Now, once I have my bird on there, I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing from the 3. And I'm going to take one of my magnets and I'll be placing my magnet right here on this larger part of the 3 right by this center section. And now I will apply this to my cardstock. I'm gonna press around that magnet to make sure everything adheres and nothing is lifted. And now I'm going to fussy cut around this. Then we'll attach our pages and our second magnet. Now I've taken this 8x8 paper, I've cut it up into 4 pieces that are 4x4, so just completely down the center of the page, both directions. I'm going to take this first piece and place it here on the front of my upper left flap. I'm going to take the one with the number 2 and I'm going to place it here on the front of my upper right hand flap. I'll take the 3, this is what gave me the idea with the bird. I'm going to place it here on this flap, but before I place the 4th one, I've got my magnet here on the back side. Once this is where it needs to go, I'm going to very carefully center this. Here and press that magnet down so that then I can place this right here on the front of this flap. Once all of my papers are on, I'm going to go ahead and attach my 3. And it looks like just this part of my bird and a little tiny bit on the top of the 3 are going to get some adhesive, so I'm going to be very careful. Now I'm going to attach my magnet and then make sure everything is straight before I adhere this down. And then I'll burnish this with my bone folder. And so now I have my magnetic closure. Then I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive here to this corner where I didn't come down far enough on my piece, just so that it doesn't catch on anything later. And next we'll go ahead and come into here and add our papers to the inside. The first piece I have is from the 8x8 paper, and I have trimmed this to 5 3/4 by 8. Now this is going to be for my background, so I do have my envelope punch board. For using your circle punch, you'll want to punch a circle in the center. And if you did not do this and you didn't add a notch, then you don't have to add anything here. Now because this is 5 3/4 instead of just barely below 6, I'm going to line this up with my 2 7/8, and I'm going to punch this. Now this will slide right down behind my belly band here. If for some reason yours does not slide down underneath of there, you might need to slightly trim those sides to get it to fit down underneath of there. The next piece that I have is for my 4 flaps. It is this 8x8 paper here. And I have cut this, I think it's actually upside down. I'm not really sure. Oh, no, it's not. So it's the one with the pyramids. I'm going to be using this side, and I've cut this in 4 equal pieces, so 4 inches by 4 inches. I'm going to be placing these ones with the decorative borders on the top, and then these pieces on the lower flaps, like this. For this band, I have these 2 little tiny pieces here. I've cut it from the leftover strip of paper here. This was from page 1. We cut this top portion off, but we only used this part here. There was a small strip down the side. I've cut these to 1 1/4 by 1 3/4. Now I'm going to go ahead and adhere these down here to the sides first, then we'll come back and add the card to the center. With my card, I have my score line at the top. I'm going to just place this first right here and make sure that it is centered on the page using my centering ruler. So it's 2 inches from center on each side. And then across the top, it is 1 3/4 inches from center there. Now, once I have that, I'm actually going to just draw very lightly a couple of marks on my belly band so that I know exactly where I need to place my adhesive. I did forget to mark the top of the card on the paper, so I am going to bring my ruler back in here for this next step just to make sure that I have it centered again. Using those marks, lining up at 2 inches from center again. And now I will adhere this down. From the 8x8 paper, I have the little cat card I'm going to place here in the center. And then I have this strip. It was cut from the 12x12 paper, and I've cut 2 pieces of it that are 3 3/4 inch. I did trim this tan border off, and there's a very tiny tan border on the other side. It's okay if your piece does not have that tan border, because it's going to tuck behind that card anyway. So I am going to actually start by placing these pieces here on each side to give me that nice uniform border, and then that center piece, or the card in the center, will overlap it and it will have that uniform look across the card. So I'm putting those tan strips in where they will be behind my card. So like I said, if yours doesn't have those tan strips, if yours is cut a little bit differently, that's okay, because you won't see them anyway once I get my card on. Once the card is on the front, we'll go ahead and flip up and we'll cut our pieces for inside. For the inside, I have this paper here. It was actually like this. It's from the 12x12. It's a leftover piece we've already cut from. It looks like this on the back side. So I'm going to have 2 pieces that measure 3 1/4 by 3 3/4, and I'm just going to adhere 1 to the top and 1 to the bottom as spaces for my photos. Once these pieces are on, I'll go ahead and close this, and I have cut these 2 pieces from my 8x8 cut apart sheet. First one, I'm going to put just a little tiny bit adhesive down on the bottom edge, and I'm going to adhere this one to the center of my lower flap on the right, and then the photo will be able to tuck behind it. And then this other one, I'm going to place this one here on my bottom left, but I'm only going to be adhering these little tiny tips down here at the bottom and to the left side so that the back portion is open and that photo will slide behind it. Now, once everything is on the page, I'll go ahead and close this one, then this one, then this one, and this one, and everything will catch with that magnet. And that is all for now for the front of the page. Remember, like with the other tutorials we've been through so far, I will come back in later and add the insert to our belly band and probably add a little bit more decoration whenever I add my finishing touches. So that's it for this tutorial. In the next one, we will start working on the back side of the page. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.